So Sean Diddy Combs finally had his day in court, and the internet is reacting with mixed emotions. So let's go ahead and unpack this. So Sean Diddy Combs was sentenced to just over 4 years in prison on Friday after being convicted of transporting women to participate in drug-fueled sex marathons. I'm not making this up.
It's a whole lot.
That's a lot. Now, we all grew up during the Diddy era, right? We were all outside. And
the Diddy era?
I mean, he did have an era. They had an era. Am I lying?
It's just weird to call it the Diddy era, but go ahead.
Maybe, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, shiny suit.
That shiny suit era, I'll take that.
Let's just say the bad boy
era.
Commercial
okay.
era.
The Diddy era is a little spooky right now. That's
weird.
Puffy. But finally seeing him sentenced definitely hits home because we were outside. We saw this whole movie. But the music industry often has been criticized for turning a blind eye to, the behavior of its stars.
Sure.
Now, the judge explicitly noted that Combs' history of good works can't wash away the record in his case. Are you surprised at any part of this sentencing?
Can I just say something real quick?
Please.
I don't care.
I knew you was going to say that.
I wondered if, when this happened, when the sentencing came around, if I was going to care more about this trial. I give zero,
At all?
I just, 4 years, he's going to be out probably in half that. He's already served 13 months.
Probably two and some change.
He's going to get
time
served. You got to understand, there used to be a time when whatever you got for Fed time, you had to do that. But now, if you want to give Donald Trump and his administration any props for it, there are a lot of federal people who have been convicted of federal crimes that have got out early through First Step Act, which requires you to do some sort of rehab and different things as far as drug treatment or psychological,
I'm not mad at that.
And so a broken clock is right two times a day. A lot of time, I think because Diddy's a celebrity, he's doing a lot more time than for the crimes he was convicted of, because they didn't get him on, we thought it was going to be sex trafficking and a RICO, and when they first, it was going to be all these celebrities going to get caught up, and perhaps people underage, and basically he got caught up. His crimes, the things he was convicted for was buying on the street and trafficking.
Wow.
Yeah, that's. I'm sorry, Mom. My mom watches the show sometimes, and this is probably going to be the one she sees.
I'll believe it
because I've cursed more on this episode than I ever do.
Yeah.
But that's basically what it is. It's the Mann Act, which if you do your Googles about how the Mann Act came about, Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion of the world, this has always been a I'm white and I say so crime. And, there are still people out here who, there are people who say that prostitution should be legal. I'm not one of those people, but, usually
go to Vegas and have fun.
Yeah. I know Vegas is a different ball game, bunny ranches and all that. But, when you think about there are people who get busted for prostitution, they get booked, they get a trial, they may get probation or something. They're talking about 4 years for what some people just get a blue card for. That's an Indiana term. But I'm just saying, does he deserve this time because of the terrible things he's done? Yes. Karma, if there's any karma, if you believe in that, I know everyone doesn't believe in that sort of principle, but just say what comes around goes around. He deserves this time. He deserves to do all of it in a maximum security situation. But just because you feel like he deserves this because of the things he's done, to Cassie, that's not what he was on trial for. Mm-hmm. You can feel like he was wrong and he's getting what he deserves, but also feel like, hey, man, this is a little bit, they overcharged him. And I think this is too much time for honestly what he was convicted of.
Yeah, it's a weird situation because you brought up Cassie. And I mean, I hate what happened to her, especially the videos that were shown. But she was implicit to a lot of this, or a lot of the things that he was doing. She's part of that. And she talks egregiously of how he did and what he did to all of these people, but she was a part of that. And I feel like she should be responsible of some of this too. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not taking anything away from what Diddy did. What he did was what he did. I mean, he was just a sexually driven
Deviant.
individual that was trying to satisfy a need and a want, and unfortunately he did some things that weren't right, and he should go to jail for that. He should serve time for that. But I don't feel like anybody that's involved in this situation should get off scot-free. I feel like everybody that was involved should have some kind of time that they need to, you know what I'm saying, serve, because you're guilty of that crime as well. You don't get to just, okay, Diddy did something to you. He did something to you, but prior to him doing that to you, you were involved in that situation as well. And you can say it was willingly or unwillingly. I mean, I don't know.
Wouldn't that
like
play a part into it though? Like,
I think so.
Depending on like,
I'm saying I don't know.
The role of power, if you will, in that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But if you're orchestrating these meetings and these things like that, you have to be somewhat part of it, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, if
I don't know. I don't know. See, my thing is, I don't know enough about this case and the details to where, like, I feel like I can comment from an intelligent and, respectful way. So I'll leave that to you.
I'm just saying, I feel like everybody should be held accountable for the crime. You know what I'm saying? And what's so strange is the who was the guy that was part of Trump's situation that got out for 6 months? No, not Epstein. That's a whole nother conversation. But there's I want to say like his religious aide or something like that just got found guilty of child or something like that.
Definitely believe that. But I saw that. But like this is the thing. This is how the legal system plays. He pled guilty, even though it was just something that was, I think, more vile than what Diddy did.
A lot more vile. Got 6 months.
But that's the way when you play ball with these folks. We don't have a justice system. We have a police system.
What if Diddy or whatever his name is had to pled guilty, it would have been guilty to a RICO charge. Because that was what they were trying to get him for from the very beginning, is the RICO charge. It wasn't necessarily, okay, you did this, you did this, you did this. It's like, no, we want to get you on all of this shit. They couldn't get him on all of it.
So they got him on buying over state lines.
I mean,
and what about all the dudes who's out here selling? Don't they need to go to jail too?
Listen,
Isn't
that's
that
what I'm
illegal?
saying. Everybody that was part of this situation now.
False equivalence here.
Everybody that was part of this. Everybody that was part of this should have to be accountable for what they did and how they acted in this situation.
But not everybody was on trial though, right?
No, everybody wasn't
one
on
at
trial.
a time.
But like the people that were involved or going to court against what was happening and were involved with what's happening. I understand that there's laws and things that can get you out of it just because you're testifying, but that doesn't make you less guilty.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? That's kind of where I'm going with it. It's more so of shining a light on the whole picture versus the one out of the colony.
Look, they gave Diddy this time because he's been a piece of shit for a long time.
Yeah.
It wasn't
part
really,
of it.
It wasn't really even for, I'll stop saying the term I've been using, but I don't even think it was for that. Is look, the people in New York, the justice system, they've been looking to get Diddy for a long time. They wanted him bad on that Shine beef, and I think after that he should have moved in such a much more careful way. But like when you get money, it blinds you to morality sometimes, and I think that's what happened with Diddy.
I think my question, because honestly, it doesn't matter what the five of us really think. I mean, the jury and the judge have already, figured this out. But I think where we can weigh in thoughtfully, whether or not you have the full facts of the case. But I think where we can weigh in thoughtfully is in how you brought up the subject, and you were talking about since that came down, that decision. There have been people on both sides, who are either celebrating it or they're in an uproar about it.
Yep.
I want to know who's in an uproar about it.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. And my thoughts have thoughts. My opinions have opinions on it. And I cannot speak to the racial element. You brought up Jack Johnson. And I'm guessing that some of the people who are outraged at how actually serious the sentencing is are looking at it through the viewpoint of this is how people of color are treated, and you wouldn't have done this if this were a white guy kind of thing. I'm sure there's an element of that. And I'm sure there's an element of fandom where there are people who are truly fans of his work, grew up on him, and don't want to see potentially a childhood hero go down like that. But then there's the more serious, real life part of this where women were hurt, period. And he deserves what he deserves, or at least what they can prove, right? Recon charge or not. So I want, like, who's mad about this is what I want to know. Like, because
who's mad at the amount of time or the lack of time?
No, on Diddy's side.
Okay.
Because I'm sure there's a whole bunch of us, me included, who's like, oh, just what the, I mean, he's a piece of shit, you know?
Yeah.
You know, but then again, like, how is this really gonna affect our lives? Right. Well, I think it also, there's yet another topic where, like, moving forward, is this going to change other celebrities' behavior? You already have the Epstein thing going on, right? And you have this. Are people going to either change, you know, the whole Me Too movement, et cetera? I think if this had actually gone down a few years earlier, he probably would have gotten worse punishment, honestly, because there's this bleak pendulum that is swinging. And so, you know, I personally cheered on the Me Too movement because there's a group of people that just wasn't getting their voices heard. In the same way that, you know, I brought up, you know, I'm sure there are persons of color who were saying, you know, just generally, I'm not getting my voice heard, and that's why my people are going to jail for these things that white people don't. How are we going to look moving forward? And so I am troubled that in the time that we live right now, that pendulum, I feel, is actually swinging back. And that people of color, immigrants, women who really do have issues with having their voices heard and being seen as human beings and represented in the justice system the way that they should be, that pendulum is swinging back, and that he only got 4 years. And I don't wish ill on anyone. I mean, Sean Combs is somebody's child too, you know, but he should pay for his crimes, and the women who are hurt by this should be represented by it. What I don't get are people who are outraged that he did get gone after and caught. I mean,
that's a real thing.
He was a bad man. He got caught.
That's what you just mentioned is a real thing, though. It's out there now. It might be scattered.
I haven't seen a whole lot of that.
It might be scattered. You know, may not be. You know.
Well, one of the things I think, this is a hard conversation. Specifically, like, you know, you brought up the guy who had done some foul things. I'm glad I don't know his name. That's not etched in my memory like that. But a lot of times, you know, unfortunately, we have these conversations where somebody black will say, well, you know, they wouldn't have done that if he was white. And the thing is, like, that's the wrong way to look at it, because what he did was wrong too, and what this white person did was wrong, and what this black person did was wrong. You know, and I think sometimes it's hard not to get caught up in those conversations because America has been so overly zealous when it comes to charging black people. You know, I remember there was a judge in Florida who gave, you know, a white kid had an armed robbery, gave him like probation, and gave the black kid 14 years. It was the same crime. You know, they have a point system in Florida, same amount of points, but the judge said, okay, this kid is irredeemable over here, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw 14 years of his life away. But this kid, he kind of looks like my nephew, so I'll give him probation and maybe he can get his life together. Those are the things that it's hard to divorce from these conversations sometimes. And I know we're seriousing it out a little bit, but I think that's if we're going to, you know, when you say, oh, I don't care, but sometimes there's another layer. You know, when we talk about these things, it just happens to be talked about through the lens of celebrities and their foolishness. You know, you talked about the Me Too and how the pendulum swings. there's part of me that thinks that this happened 10 years ago, or I can't remember exactly when the Me Too movement came about. I want to say it was a little bit more than 10 years ago. Cassie may not be believed. That videotape, if that videotape doesn't get out of him beating her ass in that hotel, I still think there'd be people who are like, why are you doing this to one of our black celebrities? It'd be like, why are you going to believe her? She got money. That $30 million, I'd take an ass whooping every once in a while. Like, there are people who say sick things like this, and I think it's sadly where some people are, and that's their trauma and the issues that they have with abuse, with, relationships between men and women. Sometimes it has to do with their relationship with the criminal justice system, so I think there's so many layers to this, but I will say this, and I've said it before, I think when we talked about this when it first happened, I was like, men in general, like, I don't, there has to be a level of sexual discipline you have in this world. And for you to see somebody who has enough money as Puff Daddy or Jeffrey Epstein or whatever goofy individual you want to use as an example, is like, your lack of sexual discipline will destroy all of the good works that you think that you've done in this entire world. Doesn't matter how much money Bill Cosby gave to those schools and how many people he put through college. When he dies, they're going to talk about the fact that, basically he is a sexual deviant and a criminal sexual deviant at that. So your lack of sexual discipline is going to be the downfall of your legacy. And I think that is something that every celebrity, not even every celebrity, every man who's out here and trying to make a life for themselves needs to take into consideration.
Yeah. Well said.
I mean, that's
real.
That's pretty much it. Like, you spoke to, actually, and you talked about the future and how things could change. That was one of my follow-up questions, but the way you described it was perfect. Like, in terms of, will there be a change in culture as it relates to, the power of certain people versus the silence when it comes to things that they do. Like, I think this is one of those landmark cases, but who knows how it's going to be received. I guess we got to kind of watch and see.
I think we were getting there with the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
With a lot of the, Floyd, social justice, racial justice issues. I really thought we were getting there.
Yeah.
And that pendulum, unfortunately, feels like it's swinging back the other way.
No, it's swinging back the other way exceptionally.
Yeah.
Like
quick.
a wrecking ball.
It's swinging back and then it hits a wall when it's supposed to be coming back the other way.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can hope.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. But there's like this other, like you brought up with Epstein and Diddy and like, what's wrong? Like, you're already rich and famous. Can you not get laid on your own?
What's the cliche term? Money don't change you. It just makes you more what you are, who you already are.
I like that.
So it's on steroids.
Yeah.
So
get a driver.
Yeah.
Get a handler.
Go back to that. Yeah.
Did Sanchez teach you nothing? Come on.
I think just because, like, we're just regular dudes, if you will. Like, we can't understand, for lack of a better term, rich freaks. It's hard for us to understand why Deshaun Watson could get caught up in, what he got caught up in, when he could honestly just go anywhere and say, I'm Deshaun Watson, who wants to come home and do something weird for, whatever.
Right. No, he only actually enjoys it when
he's being a deviant. And so it's hard for, people are like, well, why would you have to do that? I was like, that's a level of sickness that, there is, I don't want to say mental health that needs to be addressed, but it's partially that. But partially it's like, you are a celebrity, you have millions of dollars, and you don't think the rules apply to you.
Well, you're still not fulfilled, maybe.
Yeah.
That's true.
But with all this being said, I don't, maybe I just have a blind spot with this case. I don't really feel like there is any precedent here. I don't feel like anything is really going to change, especially when we look at where the country is right now, all the things that are happening, everything that's getting pushed back as far as all these things. We've seen our president of the United States say, I'd reveal the Epstein list. And then him say the Epstein list does not exist.
Does not exist, yeah.
And all of the people on his side fall in line directly behind that.
This is also a president that has been convicted of sexual assault
Talk
himself.
to him.
You know what I mean? So Trump is bigger than Diddy. You know what I mean? In regards of that nature. So if Diddy's not going to move that needle if in that particular direction. If the leaders of the quote unquote free world are over here,
bleak.
Yeah,
it's just and that's just one of the many things right now.
So at the end of the day, man, right is right, wrong is wrong, accountability is real, and I guess we'll just see what the next chapter is at this point.
Man, if you feel like you're having too much fun, just go home.
That part.